Real Madrid manager Xabi Alonso has briefly spoken about Celtic in the build-up to his team's Champions League match, and it has left a few fans upset. We will discuss this in today's video. Whilst, of course,
But first, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel for more Celtic content.
Liam Scales has often been viewed as a player fortunate to hold down a starting place at Celtic, with many, myself included, seeing him at times as a worry on the ball. But so far this season, the Irish defender has answered back with performances that are quietly making him one of Brendan Rodgers' most reliable players. In 11 games so far this campaign, Scales has been part of a defence that has conceded just 3 goals. When you look across the backline, he is still often spoken about as the weak link, yet the numbers tell a very different story. Last season, Austin Trusty briefly edged ahead of him in the pecking order, raising questions over whether Scales would keep his place long term. But he fought his way back into the side and has started this campaign with a level of consistency few could have predicted. In what has been an underwhelming start overall for Celtic, Scales has been the standout. His no-nonsense defending, aerial strength, and willingness to put himself on the line have made him an early contender for Celtic's Player of the Year, and it's still only September. Scales may never be the most glamorous name in the squad, but his importance to the team is growing by the week. In a season where others have faltered, he has provided Rodgers with stability and dependability in the heart of defence. If Celtic are to build momentum at home and in Europe, keeping Scales in this form could prove just as vital as any attacking spark. From being seen as a stopgap option, he is now making a strong case as one of the first names on the team sheet. Now for the main story, as Real Madrid manager Xabi Alonso has been studying Celtic's Champions League opponents, and his comments show just how costly the Hoops' exit to Kairat Almaty really was. Celtic went out on penalties in August, a result that shocked supporters and dropped Brendan Rodgers' side into the Europa League. For Kairat, it was a landmark moment as they reached the Champions League for the first time. Alonso has been preparing Madrid to take on the Kazakh champions and admitted he knew little about them before they faced Celtic. But he made it clear that Kairat are no pushovers. For Celtic fans, his words will sting. The Spanish legend praised the structure and style of a side that Rodgers' men couldn't break down over 2 legs. He said, "We've watched their games against Celtic and the one the other day against Sporting de Portugal. They have a strong core and some different options in attack. They're a direct outfit. They play some slick stuff and are clear in what they want to do. We'll have to compete well. We've analysed the opposition, both collectively and individually. I didn't know much about them before, but I am familiar with them now. They are in the Champions League, and they deserve to be there. The result the other day was a bit unusual, and tomorrow they're playing at home with all the emotion that brings, so we have to be prepared." For Celtic, Alonso's words are another reminder of the opportunity missed. A manager of his standing is now studying Kairat in detail, while Rodgers' side are left to prepare for Thursday night Europa League action instead. The frustration is that Celtic failed to impose themselves over 2 legs, allowing Kairat to grow in belief before holding their nerve in the penalty shootout. With Alonso praising their clarity and strength, it is clear the Kazakhs earned respect from one of Europe's elite. Celtic now face the challenge of making a mark in the Europa League and proving that the early exit from the Champions League was a slip, not a sign of deeper failings. Rodgers' side must show the composure and cutting edge that deserted them in Almaty. Meanwhile, Alonso's Madrid will take on Kairat on the biggest stage, a reminder of what Celtic let slip away. For the Hoops support, the pain of that tie will linger long into the season. Celtic have made a fresh announcement on Tuesday morning, but rather than addressing the wave of supporter anger and protests aimed at the board, the club have instead used the moment to launch a new merchandise range. At a time when fans are demanding answers on transfers, ambition, and the direction of the club, Celtic's official channels revealed the Henrik Larsson collection, a new line of clobber celebrating the Hoops legend. While Larsson remains one of the most iconic figures ever to wear the green and white, the timing of the release has already raised eyebrows. Supporters are in the middle of planned protests against the board, with silent demonstrations set to continue in the coming games. The frustration is all about what fans see as failings in the transfer market and a lack of openness from those in charge. Instead of engaging with that mood, the club's main message has been to push new clobber. For many, it feels out of touch and only widens the gap between the boardroom and the stands. Celtic Football Club are delighted to unveil the brand new Henrik Larsson collection today, available to purchase online and in Celtic stores. It's a clear contrast. Supporters want answers and real dialogue, but the board are busy promoting retro gear. The timing makes it look like they're ignoring the strength of feeling in the stands, with protests set to roll on in the weeks ahead. Henrik Larsson will always be a hero at Celtic Park, but using his name to shift merchandise in a week when fans are demanding change only adds to the sense of disconnect. With a silent protest planned inside the stadium, today's announcement will convince many that the board care more about sales than about listening to their own support. All this is happening in a massive week for Brendan Rodgers and his players. Braga come to Glasgow on Thursday, and fans are torn between backing the team and making sure their message to the board is heard. The priorities from the boardroom, going by today's release, seem to lie elsewhere. In other news, Stuart Kettlewell is refusing to let go of Celtic's stoppage time penalty at Rugby Park earlier this month, continuing to argue that the decision was wrong despite the laws of the game backing it up. Celtic came away 2-1 winners after Kelechi Iheanacho converted from the spot, but the Kilmarnock boss has been on a media tour ever since, rehashing the same complaints. What started as a post-match rant has now stretched into repeated interviews, with Kettlewell once again pointing to supposed inconsistencies in how handball is interpreted across Europe. The Killie boss is painting Robbie Dees and Lewis Mayo as victims of injustice rather than defenders punished by clear rules. The manager's complaints, however, come across as deflection. His side were under pressure all game, and Celtic's winner came after relentless attacking in the closing stages. Instead of crediting his players for holding out or Celtic for pushing until the last moment, Kettlewell has opted to keep the spotlight firmly on the referee's decision. For Celtic fans, the penalty was straightforward under the current guidelines, with the VAR check confirming the call. Yet Kettlewell continues to position it as a nationwide scandal, dragging in comparisons with France and Germany in an attempt to bolster his case. He said, "There has been some serious work done behind the scenes, not just in Scotland, but speaking to other associations, other officials, to pick their brains. Would you give that in France, or would you give that in Germany, or whatever?" And I think the general consensus is that people don't want to see it as a penalty. That doesn't help us on the day. Of course it doesn't. But I think that me saying that lines up with what you guys felt, what I think everybody in Scottish football felt after that game. And I think it becomes so difficult for defenders. I would argue that was terrific defending from Robbie Dees and Lewis Mayo, and the consequence of a block where your foot is and a ricochet from half a yard. So I think we all agree that it can't be a penalty, and we don't want it seen as a penalty.
What do you think of what we discussed in today's video? Let us know down in the comments section below. Make sure you've liked this video and subscribe to the channel for more Celtic content. Thank you, take care, goodbye.